So good morning to everybody on Alaska time. Good afternoon to those in the contiguous 48 and anybody else listening in or watching this online afterwards on our YouTube channel. Thanks for coming into the February Ice Jam event. This one is focused on the Innovation Accelerator program that we have started up within Center Ice. You see it over the left shoulder of a couple of us. This is a setup that allows us to highlight the different programmings and projects that we have within Center Ice. Center Ice itself is the Center for Innovation, Commercialization, and Entrepreneurship Innovation Hub based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, but we have a footprint and support across the University of Alaska system and programming and different support mechanisms to help entrepreneurs outside the university environment. But what we've done is we've set up this accelerator that allows us to highlight where you could fit in your entrepreneurial journey yourself or collaborators that you work with. So before we move into it, I just want to recognize the land acknowledgement of where we are all residing. So here at the Trotieta campus, the University of Alaska Fairbanks Trotieta campus is on the traditional ancestral lands of the Danana people of the Lower Tanana River. And I want to recognize those ancestral lands upon which we reside and their stewardship of those lands in the past and now and into the future. And you all will recognize the traditional lands upon which you reside, whether it's in Fairbanks or elsewhere in Alaska or elsewhere in the United States. So what is the Innovation Accelerator? It's a workflow of programming to highlight and how you can go through an entrepreneurial journey from your ideation stage at the beginning through your build stage on your customer discovery, your technology transfer, your intellectual property recognition, to you're at a launch stage, you're looking at small business innovation research grants, you're looking at small business technology transfer awards, you're looking at licensing the technology to a business that you've started, or you're looking at licensing a technology to an existing business, or you're a business outside the academic environment that is looking for growth into a new area, and you would like to partner with the university and some of the subject matter expertise that we have to help you move that forwards. And how can University of Alaska, University of Alaska Fairbanks, University of Alaska Anchorage, and UAS, how can subject matter experts in those programmings help you move forwards? So while we are based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, we have a footprint that allows us to support researchers across the University of Alaska system, and we have supported researchers both in the University of Alaska Fairbanks, UAA and UAS, and our partnership campuses and other aspects of the University of Alaska system. So in the dream stage, we call this sort of the ideation or the seed stage, where you've got an idea and you're looking for a small amount of fund, you're looking for some level of support to take that idea further forwards. It could be that you've got something new you've developed in parallel to your research work, or you're a business outside the academic environment and you're looking at a new angle and you'd like to find a university researcher or a university group that might have some expertise in that area to help you move that forward. How could you be partnered with an engineering faculty or a geoscience faculty or a management faculty or student to help move that forward? And that could then transition into a collaborative research project or even into a senior design project for a student to work on, where they're developing a solution to your need, your problem, your area that you see growing. So we call this the dream stage. It's the getting that small amount of funding to move forwards into a higher technical readiness level or commercialization readiness level. We then have 3 to 6 as part of our accelerator. And this is the customer discovery to gap funding approach. And we're going to go into these in more detail and sort of highlight programming opportunities that we have right now around some of these. But just wanted to highlight the higher level aspects of the accelerator is its different steps and different stages as you move through. So you may already be ready to go out and do some customer discovery and stakeholder discovery because you've got a developed solution and you want to learn more about how that might fit into the industry or the market that you're looking to go into. So you're already in that build stage. Or you've developed something new and you just need some funding to get to that next step, this gap funding approach. And then there's the launch stage. We have a federal grant that Evelyn will talk about later that is there to support small business innovation research businesses and those looking at SBIR and STTR opportunities. Centre ICE is part of a large statewide network, and I'm sure there's others online here that represent other parts of the statewide network. So part of the program we have is to help get mentorships, connections for the researchers within the university to external organizations, others across the university system. And how do we do that? Through events like this webinar, through our social media, through our online promotion, so we can highlight those innovative researchers that might have a solution to your needs, or what are your needs that a university researcher could have an expertise. And then we have a physical space within the engineering building at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. So if you are interested in coming in and talking to us, if you're a student or a faculty or a staff at UAF that's looking for a space where you can come and chat to others in this with a similar interest, a similar mission, then we do have space for you to come in and use the desk. We have a lab space, and that's on the 4th floor of the Engineering Learning Innovation Facility, the ELIF building at UAF, the Trothier campus. So I want to just go into the different programming parts. This gives you an idea of the different aspects of it, and I'll have Evelyn come in and talk about the ones where sort of she's the lead on, and then the last part of our presentation will focus in on the timing of those different programmings where there's an opportunity to engage with us now. We've got some deadlines of some funding opportunities, some training programs, and some summer-based internships, experiential learning programs where you can engage with us, whether it's travel funds, whether it's stipend funds, whether it's grant funding, or whether it's summer-based positions as a student assistant. Or if you're a startup looking for an intern for the summer, what's the program to allow you to engage with us and potentially find somebody that could be supported by us to help you. So in the dream stage, one of the aspects that we've built within Centre ICE is what we call ideation. So these are design thinking events. The top right is one we call the Nook Tank, which we've run in a couple of programs where we use this idea of let's define a problem and let's get common interested people in the same room. Everybody throws their thoughts onto the whiteboard, and then you divide up into groups, take some of those and actually try and plan out what could be a solution to that problem, but also thinking about what are the partnerships that need to be developed to move that forwards, where are the gaps, what are the needs, and how might funding support allow you to do that. It's a really great way that we found to find out new ideas, and also for people to pitch and present on how they might apply for some of our seed funding. Bottom right is startup weekends. This is something that Centre ICE has helped to run in the Fairbanks region, where you work with the TechStars program in a similar aspect, but you're doing it in a 54-hour fast-paced weekend-based event. And if you're interested in running one of those, finding out what's involved, contact one of the 4 of us you see here, and we'll be able to work out the relevant person to talk to about how you might want to kickstart one of those. Seed funding. This is an example of where we've supported researchers in an area that may not be their traditional area. So this is Jeff Rothman. He's a staff member in the Geophysical Institute at the university, and he applied his engineering skills traditionally used for infrasound sensors to in 2020, when we first were impacted by the COVID pandemic. He applied his engineering skills to a problem of being able to sanitize N95 masks because there was a limited supply, how to do that safely and effectively so they could still be used and pass safety management systems rather than having to completely replace every time they reached a certain level of effectiveness. So this was where you might have a skill, you might be a subject matter expert in a particular area, but the skills you've developed, you could apply it to a different area, a different part of the industry, a different part of the academic environment where you may not be applying it to your traditional background, but you're actually using your skills for greater benefit. And this could be a community benefit, or it could be a business benefit. On the build, I highlighted customer discovery. So here, as part of our program, we have a National Science Foundation Innovation Core site grant. And this allows us to support researchers in the university and externally on being able to go out and do some customer discovery, some stakeholder discovery. Often you've got a value proposition. You've got an idea, oh, we've created this cool widget, this cool solution. But before we really invest large amounts of capital let's just go and talk to the industries that we see where our solution could be a benefit, and let them tell us a story about what are their everyday problems, what are their everyday pains. As a result, you start to understand, well, we're not 100% a fit, but if we did an ideation or a pivot on our design or our project, we'd be a must-have solution for them. So when we come back with a more advanced product or a more advanced prototype, it still is a must-have. It still is something that they would implement and they would be interested in licensing, they would be interested in further developing, rather than, oh yeah, that's nice to have, and you come back 6 months later, you invest a large amount of funding in it, and they're like, no, we've moved on. That was nice at the time, but it's not a must-have for us. Getting that must-have, it then is still a problem for them 6 months down the line when you've got a more advanced tool ready for their application. They could also become a partner in developing that further forwards. Part of the University Alaska Fairbanks and academic institutions nationally is the program called a Technology Transfer Office. And this is part of the university's environment to support recognizing the inventors of university-based research, working with external entities that then want to license that technology, supporting university researchers and advising them, and then working with them on patent applications, and understanding the discoveries that go on with the university environment, developing the materials that allows those to be promoted across the industry. An example here on the right-hand side is a College of Fisheries and Ocean Science researcher, Andrew McDonald, who we funded a couple of projects. And it highlights an example of a SETS apparatus and a solution that he's developed. It highlights what those advantages are, who the points of contacts are, patent applications submitted, and it provides a platform to allow that researcher's technology to be highlighted outside the academic environment. And then if a business is interested in it, they contact Mark Billingsley, who's the director of the Office of Intellectual Property and Centre ICE. And then they might talk to David Park, who's on here, about what are the interests that they have for that, what is the terms of the agreement, how might they implement it, and then that technology can have an application into a real world business whilst still supporting and recognizing the inventor, who would be Dr. McDonald here at the university. Gap funding. This is a new track, but it's sort of building upon the seed funding that we've had as part of some of our grants. This is the sort of nudge or the step between the end of a research project, but not ready for the next opportunity. Or if you're looking for an SBIR opportunity and you're looking for some university support or a university person to help fill that gap. Right-hand side here is Dr. Bahara Bharati. She was funded under a seed fund, but we really saw that as a gap funding. Here she was developing a wireless system, wireless spectroscopy device for preclinical medical treatment. And she was looking at SBIR opportunities for her business, and she was licensing technology from the university, but she saw the capacity of the university, the laboratory space, the personnel could help her gain more data, gain more evidence on the validity of the device to be even more resilient and prepared for these other funding opportunities. So these type of gap fundings that we have out there was sort of aligning up more with that sort of process of where you're needing that step across that valley between grants, rather than a seed award, which is supporting you at that earlier stage in your entrepreneurial journey. And we've also brought in part of it where we're interested in groups that might be looking at pitch competitions, and this is within a university environment. So this could be a student group, this could be a college, this could be an institution, and then this can then drive forward some new opportunities, whether it's grant projects, it's opportunities to then apply for some of the federal awards, or it could be bringing in industries and businesses in particular areas and having them working with the academic institutions and the different colleges and institutes. And then in the launch side of it, we have the SBIR STTR grant, and when we come to the programming and the current opportunities, I'll have Evelyn delve more into this programming and how that is running and the deadlines. But just to state that this is the first aspect of a sort of SBIR STTR support that the office is providing. And we also, within the university, have researchers that are partnering with small businesses as subject matter experts, and also the STTR opportunity is the ability to transition academic research out to support business growth. And I myself actually yesterday submitted an SBIR opportunity where I was a university researcher, subject matter expert, working with an external entity submitting for a small business. And I was on another one last month as well. So these are opportunities where university researchers can stay in an academic position. They can be collaborating with businesses outside the university environment who are applying for federal grants, whether it be National Science Foundation, NASA, Institute of Health, Department of Energy, Department of Education, Department of Defense. But the university capabilities are being brought forwards as a way to increase economic growth and bring additional revenue into the state. And it is a very large pot of funding out there. There's $2 billion, I think, available in these fields across the different agencies, and Alaska is an area that Alaska could really grow into. There's been success stories, but I think there's a lot more opportunities here, and Center ICE can be able to help connect the university parts to the businesses to be more resilient and have a higher chance of success in these applications. Commercialization support. Really, it's the outreach and the promotion of the university technologies and those entrepreneurs connecting to the university. Today, you're in an ICE Jam. This is a monthly event that Center ICE puts on. Our March ICE Jam is going to be connecting with the 49th State Angel Fund and the All Call that traditionally goes on once a quarter. And then we'll probably later in the spring be bringing in some particular businesses that have some areas that are of interest to Alaska, but we're always open to others that are looking to be able to present on the work that they're doing and use our network to be able to highlight those businesses and invite them in to talk about what they're doing and how that work could benefit Alaska. So we're always open to people connecting with us on being part of this ICE Jam series moving forward. So probably March, April will probably be the next available slot, but please just reach out to the one of us that you see here or just the general Center ICE email. And then the physical space is on the 4th floor of engineering. Please just come on over. There's traditionally one of us in the space during the week. And if you find that one of us is not there at the time, just send a quick message to the Center ICE email and we'll make sure that somebody comes over and meets up with you. So I want to use the rest of our sort of time before we get to any questions and discussions on the opportunities that we have today, and there's sort of in the next few weeks to a month where there's some deadlines coming up where you attending or those that you know of might be interested in applying to access our funds, our training, and our network. So I'm going to pass over to Evelyn now to talk about the seed funding mini grants that we have to allow you to transition some of your ideas through our accelerator. So I'll move on to the next slide and then pass it over to Evelyn.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, we have actually right now available 6 mini grants for our Innovation Accelerator participants. These grants are up to $2,500 each, and it should be used to go through one of our programs. The deadline for our submission is in March, so check it out. I am available to answer any questions. This funding should be used, obviously, to do customer discovery, prototyping, purchasing materials. We can get creative as well. So it's a good opportunity if you have potentially something that you are looking to explore and you don't want to, put your money out. This is a good funding available for all UAA, UAF, and all the University of Alaska students, faculty, and staff. So, yeah.
Thanks for that, Evelyn. I think this is an example of something that we've tried to set up. We have these different programmings, and often sometimes it's that little bit of funding, that little bit of nudge support to allow you to go through it, to say, oh, I've got this cool programming, but I need some supplies or materials to help move that idea forwards, or I need something additional to get to the next stage. You don't always include it in a grant that you have, so you need something supplemental to be able to help you move forward and get to the next stage of development. So these seed funds, these mini grants, are really a way to get you engaged with our programming, to get connected to the different aspects we have. And then you might find the next ones could be made available to you in different programmings. And thanks for the questions online. We'll get to those when we have the summary at the end, and we can come back to the different programmings that we have available, because we've got 4 different deadlines, and I just want to make sure they're all highlighted, and then we'll come back and chat with everybody. But thanks for those questions. So the next one we have is Innovation Core Customer Discovery Program. So this is part of the build stage. So we have this site programming that is part of the process from going from an innovative idea to a potential small business development opportunity, to use it to then be able to apply to the National Innovation Core Program, and to be able to go on to STTR and SBIR opportunities. So the Icorp program that we have is site, so it's based in Alaska. It's there to support Alaskan businesses, and we can provide funding both as a stipend funding and including travel. But as I said, it's the first step such that you could then launch towards a business or move on to the national program for the Icorp program, which is $50,000 to get 100 stakeholder interviews. Our programming is $4,500 to get 20 interviews across a 6-week period. And it allows you then to be able to understand your value propositions fit into the industry you're looking to go into, to listen and hear their stories about what are their everyday pains, what are their everyday issues, can find partners, follow on projects. We've had some successes where a couple of groups that have gone through our programming have actually then ended up getting pilot projects with those people they've spoken to, because they've been able to highlight what they're developing as a real fit for what they need. And then the outcome of the Icorp programming wasn't a grant, it was actually let's now actually apply it in their business. And then they've actually led on to collaborative projects where they've actually been able to develop their products and actually apply it for that other external business. So the focus of this programming is to say, okay, I've got this value proposition that sits in the middle of this business model canvas. And then what you're looking at is trying to find the problems for the industry or the stakeholder or the individual that you're looking to interact with. You're trying to find out who your customer segments are. So it might be somebody in a safety position in a business. It might be a training manager. It might be an engineering lead. And then you're trying to determine what the solution is that can provide them with the must-have outcome. And then you go back and say, okay, does our original value proposition actually provide that solution? If it doesn't, how do we edit? How do we ideate upon that to actually then become a solution that is beneficial and a solution that actually has a market and has a end user that will apply it and be ready to use it once it's developed? So this one has a 22nd of February deadline. The reason we have a slightly earlier deadline for this one is that we're looking to run the 6-week program starting March 1. There is the Innovation Summit coming up in Juneau, 16th and 17th of March. So therefore, that's a travel opportunity to go and speak to potentially innovative end users, and also to be able to go and interact with anybody in the Juneau area that might be interested in your product. And if you contact myself, you'd be able to learn more about the Icorp program. We have a fairly short sort of Google form to fill out, just to highlight who you are, what your value proposition is that you're bringing to the table. And then once you're signed up, then some paperwork to move forwards. But the programming would start around March 1, 6 weeks gets you through to April 9. So obviously in the middle is 16th, 17th of March in week 3. And part of this is you sort of learn what it is to set up a value proposition, the skills on how to communicate with the end user or the stakeholder to find out what their pains are without telling them what your solution is. So you can then start to ask them, well, if they say, we can't do this because of a particular reason, then delving into the details of that. So eventually you can gain that feedback and be able to assess if what you've developed actually can provide a solution to them. We do weekly tag ups for about 30 minutes just to see how you're doing, any issues you have, how can the center ice team, help you in building connections for the network. If you're looking at mentors, team members that we can help you with, and we're open to those within the university and external to the university. And Kevin has shared a link, and Evelyn's also shared a link to the Innovation Accelerator grant opportunity RFP as well. So I'm going to pass next over to Evelyn to talk about the SBIR award that we have with University of Idaho, Montana State, and New Mexico State. So I will mute, and over to you, Evelyn.
Thank you, Peter. So first of all, SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research. This is essentially a non-dilutive grant available from the federal government. So imagine the free federal government wants to support innovation and entrepreneurship. So they give you entrepreneurs, small businesses, free money to develop your technology. This essentially is 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, and it could be under a period of 6 months or a year. But we were fortunate enough to start our first cohort to help entrepreneurs select their agencies, do grant and writing applications, budgeting, award management, and IP protection. And this is the first cohort ever in Alaska. And it's going to be in partnership with the University of New Mexico, Montana, and Idaho. And these efforts are called Mesas to Mountains. So it's an SBIR accelerator, and it will start at the end of March. So it's going to be an interesting program. If you're curious, it is not required that you have registered your business to be part of a cohort. If you want to learn about this type of funding, it is a really good first step towards that goal. And there is also another cohort. We don't have a date yet settled for those, but it will be sometime in the fall of 2022. The goal of this cohort really is to essentially lower the barrier of knowledge, given that a lot of the proposals and a lot of the requests from these agencies are a little bit complex if you're not familiar with the language. But having said that, that's essentially the biggest barrier. So once you learn about them, it is really easy to apply for several of them. There are probably more than, as Peter mentioned, $2 billion available every year. And this is something that is very viable for most entrepreneurs to apply. You just really need to learn what they're looking for. You need to understand their needs. Essentially, it's a customer. So this is a huge opportunity. I will recommend anyone really that is interested in starting a small business to attend to these cohorts and learn. You will not only have, develop skills of, grant writing, but also you will be able to learn about like business planning, budgeting. We all need budgeting. And then you'll be able to network with the federal agencies on June 2020, when we're going to host a summit for you guys to meet the program managers, which is always helpful. And you should be willing and wanting to meet them, because in most of the cases, they're the ones that are revising your application and probably awarding you the funds. So it's a really fun program. I will be there, and a lot of other really awesome individuals that have supported these efforts throughout the US for many years. So it's really a really amazing opportunity. The deadline, yes, the deadline for the submission will be February 25th. So you are not, the application is pretty straightforward. If there are any specific questions, feel free to email me. And yeah, get curious. There's a lot of free money out there. You don't have to pay it back. So there you go.
Thanks for that, Evelyn. Yeah, the SBIR, STTR opportunities. There are some individual programmings, individual groups have different ways of the application. So it's always good to know what that is, to be better prepared, because sometimes you see those opportunities and then you realize I don't have the capability or the knowledge to be more successful in receiving these, or have a higher chance of success. It could be the process, the budgeting, but it could also be, well, if I bring in a partner, I could actually be really that they're looking for partnerships between two businesses. We're looking at like the STTR opportunity is the academic partner, and those actually there's less businesses applying for those than they are applying for the SBIR track because of the academic aspect of it. So the universities that you listed, are perfect examples of like, well, there's an STTR opportunity. Maybe the business can partner with the university to transition some of that technology and apply for a funding opportunity that has a higher chance of success, just because the number of applicants to the number of awards is very different to the SBIR opportunity. But it is definitely this type of accelerator in programming and training just gives the chance of those in Alaska have a greater knowledge and capacity, such that when they see an opportunity, they can respond and have a greater chance of success because they know the process and they know the right directions to be as successful as possible. So it's great to have that project and that award connected to Alaska and the university, and because I can only see it as ways that we can look to improve the number of successful SBIR and STTR applications where there's an Alaskan business or Alaskan collaborators as part of it. And the last thing that I want to highlight, it fits across all of the different steps that we have within the accelerator. So you've heard me talking about the build, the dream, and the launch aspects of it. So something that we've also had success of in the last 3 years is our Students to Startups program. And this is where we looked to partner students within the University of Alaska with startup businesses who are based in Alaska. And this is a summer-based program. So you saw on the previous slide, the program is from May to August. So that's about 12 weeks. And between now and May, we have a process of getting students interested in working for a startup or a startup looking for an intern to get them to come together and mix and highlight what the businesses are looking for and what the students' interests are and passions and then you use another few weeks to build out an internship program and then go through the hiring process and then kickstart the internship program in May. Here we show an example from last year where we did it virtually and we're likely to go virtual again, just because it gives much more flexibility on the location of the business and the location of the student, that we can have them in different cities and different communities across Alaska, where the students design with their startup what the internship is, but it's not limited to that internship because you're working with a startup company. Last year, one example, we had then Carter Solutions, but now Carturian. They ended up getting 2 full-time and 1 part-time students, which dramatically increased the capacity of the business and allowed them to pursue new angles in the development of their 3-dimensional software system, their software as a service capability. It gave their team members like Jay Byam, the CEO, and others time to focus on other aspects. The students got to see the day-to-day operations of what was going on and allowed them to then move forward to the next level. They got into the G-Beta Accelerator, they got some investment, they got some connections with 49th State Angel Fund. It really gave them a kick-started opportunity to move forwards. Another example here is Aquaga. They are partnered with UAF and the University of Washington on a licensing agreement, and the student that worked with them is continuing to collaborate with Aquaga since they went through their internship program, and who knows where that partnership will grow and develop, and additional students of that intern have then continue to work with Aquaga. Other examples, we had a startup business that came to the mixer, didn't find a student at the time that was interested in partnering with them, but actually one of the students got in touch with that business after the end of the summer because they saw the potential of a future opportunity, and that led to working with them into the fall. Another one, we had an engineering student connecting up to a granola food manufacturing business because of the student's passion and the passion of the business. That student has continued to work with them and is part of their team and seeing a lot of interactions with them, social media and the future growth and development. And that student is continuing to partner and work with that business after the end of the internship. So the internship program is not only to give those students that are supported the experience of what it's like to be in a startup environment, learn more about the statewide ecosystem, but also can lead to future opportunities where the business sees the sort of potential of the student sees the mission and the vision of the business, and maybe that will lead to future opportunities, maybe after they graduate or when they come back for their studies and continuing to interact with them. Here's an example of the 2021 companies that we had working with us over the first 3 years of the program, and we'll be having a fourth year this year. We've had 17 companies that have connected with us and 30 interns, of which we've had about 50-50 between University of Alaska Fairbanks and University of Southeast and the UAA based students. So we've had a good mixture, and we've had a good mixture of diversity of backgrounds, of degree programs, degree levels, so that it's really there as a programming to help provide these experiential learning opportunities for the students. You also, as part of the programming, learn about the wider entrepreneurial programs going on in the state. Here's an example of where we have the Department of Innovation cells that are going on. Idaho Air Force Base and Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. We had them come in and present with myself on what they're doing in terms of innovation, how they're innovating for the DoD mission in Alaska, and then examples of how we at the university are partnering with them to get some of their challenges that they're looking at into the academic environment, whether it's part of the honors program or a senior design project. For this one, we have a deadline, 25th of February. This is really to submit to come to the Mixer event. Here's where you'll have the chance to talk to the startups, find out what their internships are, present about yourself. And really, it's that step that allows you to then lay out what your internship might be for the summer. Then we have that going on between March and April. Then we have the interview stage to integrate you and assess whether you can, and then build on the hiring stage. So this is the sort of interview for human resources hiring stage. And then all being well, everything moves through smoothly. And then you would start in May, approximately the week after the end of the spring semester. So the aim of this is a 12-week period across the university's summer timeframe, second week of May to the second week of August. And then as part of that, the startups would get to work with you. We'd have weekly learning events. We'd have a summer project that you'd work in groups in the cohorts and as well as with your individual businesses. So you'd get to see a little bit more about the intellectual property aspects of an academic environment, what a startup business goes through every day, but still with an overall focused project that you're moving towards, but knowing that you might be asked, hey, can you build a slide deck because we're presenting to some investors next week, or we're going to be doing something at a vendors event in Anchorage. Can you come and help out at the vendors table with our personnel? But also working forwards on, or we're working with a strategic partner. Can you come to the visit and support us and sort of help and be part of the team? So the internship is not just a traditional sort of, here's your project and you're just going to work on that. You get to see all the different aspects, because these startup companies are in the size where a couple of interns and you might be doubling or at least having a quarter more increase in the personnel that can be applied to the business development. So before we jump over, and thank you, Kevin, for the links in the chat. And if anybody wants the slide deck, I'm happy to share that, and the video will be on our YouTube channel later today, if not by Monday morning. So really, these are probably the critical things to take away from today is the 4 deadlines that we have. So we have the Icorp deadline to be part of the March spring cohort, 22nd of February. We have the Mountains to Mesa and Students to Startups application on the Friday of that week. And then the mini grants, March 15th. And as Evelyn pointed out, for that one's got a time frame of support to fund you through the summer. Students to Startups is a summer-based program, and there'll be some iterations and interactions with you between March and April. Mountains to Mesa, as Evelyn said, is a March current cohort with a fall potential in the future. And then the Icorp programming, again, is a March 1 to April timeframe. We also are potentially looking at another iteration of the Icorp program in the summer timeframe if the current cohort timing doesn't work out for you. But as I always say, why not have a go? Why not go for it? Because who knows what outcomes you will gain that would allow you to apply for another funding opportunity or another programming that comes in the summer, which the information, the feedback you got from the Icorp could actually make you more likely to receive that following opportunity. So finally, this is the Innovation Accelerator that we've presented today. It's allows us to highlight to you all the different programmings we have available, how and where you might fit, whether you're in the dream, build, or launch. And we're always open for discussions. We have an open door policy, so come along to the Center Ice space if you're physically in Fairbanks. If not, one of us from Center Ice would be happy to have a chat with you on the phone or set up a Zoom meeting. Or if you're tired with Zoom, some other way to communicate with you, because I know everybody has been having lots of Zoom meetings over the last couple of years. But what I'll probably do now is jump to some of the questions that have come up in the chat. And then maybe it's a question to Evelyn on the mini grants that you mentioned. Are those separate to the customer discovery funding that we have available within Icorp? Can they run in parallel, or what would be your response to that question from Jonathan?
Hey, Jonathan, that's a really good question. And actually, their funding, it's parallel. So, but the requirement for the mini grants is that you go through one of our programs in order to be able to apply and get the funding. So if you want to do the Icorp program for customer discovery and apply for the grant, that is an option. But if anything, we can talk to you about both and see what potentially makes more sense depending where you are. There is the link in the chat I sent with more specific details of this opportunity. So the easiest way also is to email me, and then we can set up a call and I can let you know more in details how will that look like. But if you want to do Icorp and apply for the grant, that is an option. If you don't want to do Icorp, but there is another program that you want to go through, definitely that's an option. So that is essentially it.
Thanks, Evelyn. I think I can add to that is that with the Icorp program, there are some specific limitations on how the funding can be used. We have the ability to support travel, some supplies, and stipend to be able to pay you as a reimbursable stipend, whereas the mini grants could be coupled to that for some additional supplies and materials that allow you to do your Icorp programming. So I think that's where they could run in parallel, but it doesn't mean you have to have one to apply for the mini grant. It just gives you an additional support to be able to potentially do your Icorp training, because there are some limitations on how the Icorp programming funding can be spent, and that's where the mini grant could be an additional port that could actually could help you for areas that we couldn't support. Then Jonathan's other question is, how is the national Icorp program currently addressing ongoing pandemic safety concerns? Good question. So that's I don't know in terms of the national program how they're working on the travel aspect that traditionally is part of the Icorp funding. They are doing the training for the initial kickstart and end virtually, as far as I'm aware. That's one other reason why we've been able to negotiate that our site programming doesn't solely support travel funding, which traditionally site programs have. We've been able to provide support that is stipend, so it's reimbursable funding to you for your time. If you want to be able to do travel funding, or you're welcome to that. Obviously, you can make an assessment on whether that's something you want to perform as part of it. You could potentially do it all virtually over the phone. And we have some options on being able to provide access to other online platforms. Really, it's just talk to us, because we're here to provide the funding to help you do your customer discovery. And if you need to do that completely virtually or on the phone, and you need access to some other resources to help you make that happen because you don't want to travel, then we're here to help. On the national side, I think if you're interested in the national program, we'll be happy to connect you with the national program officers and the managers. So the National Science Foundation is who we're connected to, but there are other Icorp programs, and I'm sure each of those have their own individual plans for the safety aspects, depending on where its fundings come from and depending on what their own organization's policies are. But for us, it's really following what you feel is the most safe for you. And if you're doing it as a university employee, ensuring that you're following whatever university policies are for travel. But we're welcome to talk with you on whether you want to be doing that completely virtually, or if you're wanting to do that with a travel travel doesn't have to be included, but if you feel it's beneficial and it's going to really help you in your discovery, we had one group that's going through it right now that needed to go out and talk to the end users of their product, and it was just much easier to do it in person, but they had to follow the safety management and safety protocols of the community they were going into. Others have done it completely online because they can do everything through a Zoom virtual aspect. They didn't need to go and speak to the individuals. So it comes down to your need and what your value proposition is and the benefit of an in-person interaction would have to your customer discovery process. So in that sense, we've got about 10 minutes or so more. Is there any other questions from the attendees? Otherwise, I can probably got a question I can ask Evelyn. From Mel, great programs, thanks for the opportunity. Yes, and thank you for reminding us, Melanie, on that. So the Alaska Angel Conference was another part of the entrepreneurial programming available in Alaska. That has a deadline of midnight tonight. So this is both for businesses that are individuals looking at the Alaska Angel Conference as a place where they can get some investment, and then they would go through the due diligence working with the Alaska Angel Conference, but also it is connected to individuals that might want to be part of the pool of investors for those that investment. So any questions you have on that, you can see in the chat, and Melanie's the lead for that programming at 49th State Angel Fund, and there's the akangelconference.com if you want to read more about it. It's because while we at Center ICE are highlighting the Innovation Accelerator today, it's one step or one part of the growing opportunities we have in Alaska for startup businesses and those interested in entrepreneurial pursuits, whether it is a university-based support, whether it is entities external to the university with training programs, with accelerators, with implementation plans on how to integrate solutions into the community. Alaska has been very good, and the university for sure, very good in large federal grants, large federal programs. But there are opportunities out there for small business growth, either whether it's an investment process or innovation research grants or funding opportunities that actually could really grow and benefit Alaska. The SBIR, STTR opportunities are one aspect of that. So I guess my question then maybe to Evelyn is, how, if a business became part of the cohort, how would they interact with the other businesses at the other institutions? You mentioned 3 academic institutions, and they themselves will have teams that they're connected with in the cohort. So how would the individual businesses in Alaska connect to the businesses in New Mexico, in Idaho, and Montana?
So this is a good question, and this cohort is going to be all virtual. We are going to be hosting 10 weeks and sessions of about an hour, and we are not expecting you to join to all of them, but the ones that you won't be able to join, they're going to be pre-recorded. The big event that we have for networking and really more of an interaction within the cohort will be the summit in June. And if anything, this is just another way of putting yourself, your idea, exposed to more stakeholders and potentially networking opportunities that could spiral from that. And I would say, if any of this sounds interesting to you, or you're curious, but you don't know if it's a good fit or not, the only requirement is to be curious. So email us. I think there is definitely things to take away out of all the different things we're going to teach in the cohort. And it could be applicable in many different ways, such as IP protection. But definitely join us. I would say, when in doubt, just go for it. Just do it.
Exactly. Thanks for that, Evelyn. There's sometimes we're all innovative. We all have these new ideas, and it's been able to take the risk in an environment where you can assess, make some. If you fail, then what did you learn? What information did you learn from that, and how can you use that to move forwards? And sometimes you being able to take those risks where you've got some support, you've got a support mechanism, you've got a collaborative community, you've got access to some funding to help you take that risk, make that assessment, and say, okay, yeah, now we do want to go to the next stage. And these programmings are there to help you be able to do that.
Peter, and I forgot to mention, really, like these opportunities are not only for one time only. I mean, you could apply several times, and I think this also could potentially apply for our own programming. You could go through our programs multiple times. For the small business innovation research grants, I know someone that has applied like 17 times or 20 times or 50 times, and without their life business. So it is really something that, if it's sustainable to do it for you as a small entrepreneur right now, it could be something that could have a huge impact long term for your idea, because if your first idea doesn't work out, you will most likely have another one in the future, or you could have 10 businesses or 5 businesses, and you can apply for all of those business and ideas. So it's a very, like, I'll say, unique way. There's not other programs like that in any part of the world. So it is really a truly unique opportunity for us in America.
Yes, very much so. I think the SBIR opportunities that are available, I listed lots of earlier on some acronyms of different institutions and different organizations. Mm-hmm. The federal governmental and Department of Defense organizations, the military establishments, they seem to be growing the number of ones that offer these. And it's really that small business heartbeat of growth that can happen in a community and in a state. So the SBIR opportunity is where the business is the lead, and they might have a university partner because they're bringing in a subject matter expertise that they don't have as capacity in their organization. And then the phase 2 could be up to $750,000 to $1 million over 12 to 18 months, focused on developing towards a solution with a commercialization track. So you're working on finding partners who might want to commercialize it or move it beyond the R&D into a commercializable product, or help you as a business continue to commercialize it. And then once you reach phase 3, you could then become a sole source supporter to federal needs. And this could be then anywhere within the federal space. So if you're funded by NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and you reach a phase 3 award, you could then be working into providing your solution to other parts of the federal government, because you got your funding from a particular federal government agency. So it can lead, in addition to, as you said, sort of research and development funds for growth, but it can lead to long-term support and success as you progress forwards. And then those academics listening in, you can be a partner on these opportunities. As I said earlier, I'm on one that submitted yesterday to the Prime. I'm on one that went in last month. I was on one in the fall. I'm on a phase 2, and I'm getting research funding as an academic to continue my own research, but I'm partnering with these businesses and external entities that are looking at Alaska. Either they're based here or looking at Alaska as a place to come and do work. They're coming to test their equipment. They're coming to test their projects. And as a result, that's economic growth for the state, whether it's the business itself successfully in Alaska, or looking at Alaska as a place to come and perform their operations and bring their solutions to benefit the state of Alaska. So we at Center ICE are here to support, whether that's ideation, whether that's advising for the academics on the licensing side, connecting through David and others in our intellectual property office, or if it's supporting the entrepreneurs in Alaska to be more resilient and more prepared for those opportunities that are out there, that it would be great to bring more of those into the state. So on that note, a couple of minutes to go. We are open. Please give us a call, send us a message by email, go to our website, and then don't forget the deadlines we have coming up. You can find information about those under the different titles of the 9 parts of our accelerator, and then there will be application links on there. Kevin shared those in the chat, so if you save the chat, you'll be able to access those afterwards. The video for this will go online on our YouTube channel, so just type Center ICE UAF into YouTube and you'll find it. And if anybody would like access to the slide deck for the hyperlinks, please get in touch with Center ICE and we'll make sure you get a PDF copy. So on that note, I'd like to thank our presenters today, our support team, Kevin, David, and others within Centerice and OIPC. As Kevin highlights, you're welcome to follow us on Facebook. We have a LinkedIn page, we have a newsletter. Really, we're just here to be that support mechanism. I'd like to thank all of the participants for coming in today, for the questions, and just for listening to hear more about our Innovation Accelerator and seeing maybe where different parts of our programming could help you on your journey. But as I say, Evelyn highlighted it really well. Just reach out and take the plunge, have an idea and see how it could fit in our programming. So thanks everybody for listening, and have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Kevin.